What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Wildcast podcast on Apple, Spotify, and also Tucson.com. I'm Justin Spears here with my guy, Michael Lev, senior writer and columnist for the Arizona Daily Star. And we're going to preview the Arizona-BYU game, probably the biggest home game of the Brent Brennan era. Wildcats taking on the undefeated Cougars, which should have a jam-packed environment at Arizona Stadium. It should be rowdy. I'm definitely confident that there's going to be a ton more Arizona and opposing fans at Arizona Stadium. We're going to see a pretty full Arizona Stadium, but how full is it going to be, Lev? Because, man, it's interesting because BYU, they're going to bring a lot of fans. Arizona is going to have a lot of fans because it's 5 p.m. on a Saturday in October. Like, this is perfect timing, weather, everything, but maybe not so much weather because there's a storm moving in, Lev. And I'm very, very concerned. So concerned, I'm trying to figure out like a anti-rain dance.
Tropical storm Priscilla is working its way up the coast from the Pacific Ocean through Baja California, headed toward Arizona. We are not going to be hit with hurricane-like conditions here, but there could be remnants of it. There could be lingering rain that just kind of envelops our town. And the forecast currently, as we speak here on Wednesday afternoon, is calling for an 81% chance of rain on Saturday. Not great. They can play through rain, right? They just can't have lightning. So we'll see if that's part of the deal. It's supposed to rain all the way through Monday, but who knows? There's a boy cried wolf element to severe weather forecasts for Tucson. Definitely have experienced that many times since I've been here. It's supposed to be this torrential downpour, and then it turns out to be very much ado about nothing.
Yeah.
So we'll see. There's nothing we can do about it. Fans, if they're planning to come to the game, should prepare accordingly. And if there is a delay and you're stuck underneath the stands, there might be something new for you to eat.
Yeah.
While you're at Arizona Stadium, right, Justin?
Yeah, because Arizona Athletics announced that EG's is back at Arizona Stadium. So EG's will be a part of Food Truck Alley over there on the west side of the stadium, right? So that's where EG's will be. And it was sold at Arizona Stadium a long time ago, and then they removed it for a hot minute, and now it's back, which would have been nice last week in that hot weather. But, hey, you know what? I will happily take EG's any time of the year. And yeah, if there is a weather delay, maybe you can find your way over to the west side of the stadium and get a nice EG. So I'm excited for that.
They would have sold a gajillion of those last week.
Oh yeah.
Right. So, you only have so much control over these things. The timing is not perfect for getting EGs back in Arizona Stadium, but it's still cool. It's a local institution. And when the weather is warm, which it is most of the time here, that EG really hits the spot.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure the founders of EGs, they were University of Arizona students, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So it's super exciting to have those guys back, and maybe they start to add, I don't know, Arizona inspired flavors. Maybe there's a Brennan Berry.
Good idea. I feel like Danny Gonzalez is going to give us a history lesson of the origins of EGs.
Oh yeah.
His next sermon with the media. So
and then they introduced the grinder, and we got a bunch of grinders on our defense right now. Oh man, I love Danny Gonzalez. He's an awesome guy.
He's a key figure in this pure ball game Saturday, isn't he?
No doubt about that, man. This is an interesting game, and we have some other breaking news that maybe not so much breaking by the time you listen to this podcast, but some other Arizona-related news that we'll discuss here in a little bit before Big 12 Bonanza with our guy Jordan Hamm. But initial thoughts on this game, Lev. Is this the Spider-Man pointing meme in regards to the defenses? Because if you look at it, I mean, Arizona and BYU are pretty neck and neck. They're both top 10 defenses. They're both really good at stopping the run. And they've also got some really good defensive backs too. And Arizona, they also have some good defensive backs as well. I thought it was really interesting that Riley Wilson called Traden Stukes, Genesis Smith, and Dalton Johnson the three-headed monster, and said that those guys just do all the little details, right? And they're just perfect leaders, perfect captains. They set the tone for the defense. But this Arizona team has done such a great job defensively, and they have thrown out so many different looks. We've seen 4 linebackers. Danny Gonzalez said he's thrown out 5 linebackers. And then we've seen the basic 4-2-5 defense. And it just seems like no matter what they throw out there, it always seems to work for Danny Gonzalez. I mean, even in that Iowa State game, they did a nice job of stopping the run. So Arizona's defense is versatile. They can really beat you multiple ways, a lot of disguised looks, a lot of different pressures from defensive backs and linebackers. One of the, maybe not funkiest, but one of the most unique defenses that I've seen in Arizona in recent years. And it's been very successful. It's been working. Now, will that work against a fundamentally sound offense like BYU? Because, they don't make a ton of mistakes on that side of the ball. Barrett Bachmeier doesn't have stats that jump out at you, but he also only has 1 interception on the season. So this Arizona defense, they've been awesome this year, but you know what? BYU also has an awesome defense too, and they're going to take it to Arizona's offense. So yeah, I think, in my opinion, this is like the Spider-Man pointing meme, especially with these 2 defenses.
Yeah, that is in fact the topic of Cat Stats this week, which I'm working on today. Just comparing those 2 defenses, like which one is actually better. Obviously, they will not square off against each other directly in the game, but we shall see which one fares better. I think the key for me from the Arizona side is, can you disrupt, confuse, and confound Bear Bachmeier, who's shown no signs of being a true freshman who doesn't know what he's doing, right? Like, he's been just as good on the road as he has been at home. As you mentioned, only 1 pick on the season. His completion percentage is in the upper 60s. He's been great. On the other side, I think the availability report is going to be a big deal. When that comes out later tonight, by the time you guys listen to this, I'm sure that'll be the first 1 or 2 of those will be out there. But BYU's top 2 linebackers and playmakers, Isaiah Glasker and Jack Kelly, both got hurt last week. And they are tied for 5th in the Big 12 with 6.5 tackles for loss apiece. Huge, significant key players for that BYU defense. So that's one thing to watch on the availability report. Arizona's offensive line situation is another one to monitor. And I think that cornerback room has got a little thin lately, with one guy being out this week and one guy being out the next, and maybe some guys banged up last week. So that's another one to watch when those start rolling out.
And some news recently that has come out of the Arizona football program, Lev, is Arizona tight end Kean Burnett has decided to redshirt this season. And, we mentioned the possibility earlier in the season, just like us talking, right? We're just kind of, BSing, just talking about whatever. And we were like, Noah, he has 2 more years left of playing at Arizona. And Kean, he hasn't redshirted at all. So, I mean, Kean Burnett's like a starter level tight end, but is there a possibility that he redshirts? Well, he decided to redshirt after 5 games, but he did play in 4, so he can redshirt this year. So he's going to have another year of eligibility. So he's going to play in that 2026 season. But there was a mutual parting of ways. That Kean Burnett is no longer with the program. He decided to redshirt, and they just thought maybe it was best for both parties that Kean would take this time for himself and kind of reevaluate where he's at and explore his options for next season. So it's unfortunate, Lev, just because this was a player who signed as the highest rated tight end since Rob Gronkowski, and he had these lofty expectations as being one of Noah Fafita's top weapons during his time at Arizona, and he just kept dealing with injuries. And he suffered a hamstring injury in training camp, and we both saw that. And to be honest with you, Lev, I was just like, yeah, he'll be fine in a few weeks. It's okay. A few weeks tops. But apparently this was like a hamstring injury that kind of lingered. and he was just never quite himself. And then he's also been dealing with a sports hernia issue as well, and some other injuries. So Kean Burnett was never really fully himself. So, I mean, if we're talking about on the field disappointing career for Kean Burnett at Arizona, but a really awesome person, awesome young man, was a great teammate. And I think he's going to land on his feet wherever that is. But I probably guess that, he's done at Arizona and he's going to play 2026 somewhere else.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. As we talk about many times, like availability is an ability, right? Like it's an important trait to have, and he hasn't been available over the last couple of years as much as he would have hoped or the team would have hoped. It is a difficult position to play. Like you got to be tough. You got to be really, really tough to play tight end. So like what is the upshot of this for Arizona? Well, when you started training camp, you had Tyler Powell, you had Kellen Ford, incoming freshman, you had Kean Burnett, you had Sam Olsen, and you had Cameron Barmore. Well, of those 5 guys, only 2 of them are left. Your scholarship tight ends. So that position group is really thin. The only ones who are left are Sam Olsen and Cam Barmore. And I noticed in that game that Cam Barmore was playing a lot more than we're accustomed to. And now we kind of know the reason behind that. So they're in a bit of a scramble mode. Should they suffer another injury? You've got guys like Tyler Mustaine on the roster, a local kid from Push Ridge High School. There's another local player in Caden Luke,
Big
from
Red.
Canyon del Oro, who's called Big Red. He's also listed at 5'11", so not exactly your classic tight end, but you know what? The kid can block, right? And that's kind of half the battle at tight end. So it'll be interesting to see how Arizona adjusts to that. Hey, if those top 2 guys stay healthy, it'll be kind of status quo. You won't really notice anything different. If one of them should go down, they're going to have to make some adjustments with their offense.
No doubt. All right, we're going to have Jordan Hamm join us in a little bit to do our Big 12 picks. Another piece of news, Lev, that came out the other day is Arizona defensive lineman Jara Bear Anderson is no longer with the program. Another guy who I thought was maybe going to be in for a breakout year, or at least be a key contributor. I mean, he was getting a lot of reps with that second team defensive line in training camp, and then just kind of fell off. And we didn't really see him at the start of the season. He played a few snaps in that Weber State game, and then that was it for Bear Anderson. So no longer with the team. Now, the good news for Arizona, it's like good news, bad news. Bad news is you're down 1 defensive lineman, so you lose a little bit of depth. But the good news is I think Arizona's defensive line has played pretty solid for the most part this season. I mean, one of the top rushing defenses in the Big 12, and then, recently against Iowa State, which was their big test of the year, only giving up 2.4 yards per carry. So I think, even though they lose Bear Anderson, I feel like Arizona's defensive line is in a really good spot right now.
They did get Zach Ziulepa back recently. We still kind of have no idea what he's capable of at this point in his career, but a big body. I mean, he's listed at, I think, 100 more pounds than Bear Anderson. Bear was kind of an undersized defensive tackle, kind of a 3 technique. Someone who relied on his twitchiness and his quickness, not really a run stuffer, more of a pass rusher. But they've compensated for whatever they're lacking in depth and size along the defensive line by using those hybrid edge rusher guys, Chase Kennedy and Riley Wilson. Those are, they're linebackers. They drop into coverage, but really they're defensive ends, right? For the most part. So I would kind of put them into that defensive line group. And when you do that, you kind of feel better about things, right? In terms of the depth that they have. Deshaun McKnight has been really good. Transfer from one of the many FCS transfers who are on this defense and have performed well. He's up among the league leaders in tackles for loss. Malachi Bailey has been a really good addition. And I think, hopefully we're going to see a better version of Tre Smith here moving forward. He's been just not quite his usual self since he got hurt earlier in the season. There were super high hopes and expectations for him coming into the year. Hopefully that starts showing up here as Arizona gets into these really big, important matchups.
When you look at players to watch for this game, Lev, for both BYU and Arizona, who do you think is maybe due for maybe a breakout game or just a game where they're going to make a ton of plays?
Well, I would say on the Arizona side, I would vote for Genesis Smith. Yeah. I think you're spotlighting that matchup against Bear Bachmeier. Genesis Smith is basically like the quarterback of the defense, right? I usually think about a middle linebacker in that role, but in this case, it's really the free safety. He's their biggest ball hawk and playmaker in the defensive backfield. Any balls thrown over the middle, deep shots, Genesis is going to be in the vicinity, right? So that would be one that I would watch on that side. And then the other side, I would say LJ Martin.
Yeah.
BYU's running back who averages 98 rushing yards a game, second best in the Big 12. He averages 6.4 yards per carry. To me, like one of the ways that you can mess with Bear Bachmeier is to shut down the run. They were able to do that pretty successfully against Iowa State, but Iowa State has a senior quarterback in Rocco Becht who's seen it all, done it all, and he was unfazed by that, right? If you can make BYU a little bit more one-dimensional by putting the clamps on LJ Martin, you might have a chance to slow them down a little bit. What do you think? Who you got?
Yeah, I'd say, you make a great point about shutting down LJ Martin, because if you can get Bear Bachmeier into those third and longs, and now you got to rely on a freshman quarterback to make those throws on the road. And we don't know what the weather is going to look like, right? It could be, the ball could get slick. I'm sure Bear Bachmeier has, probably played in rainy games before, but, if you get into those third and long situations with the way the weather is, that's really going to play to the defense's advantage. So I think, LJ Martin is the go-to player for me for BYU. I think he's a great running back, one of the best in the Big 12, tough runner, and probably maybe the best running back that Arizona has played so far this season. I know that Arizona's played against some other good running backs, but
no, you're right. No, he's the best. Yeah.
LJ Martin's better than Carson Hansen. So they're playing their best running attack of the season, and they've been good so far this year, but now it's really going to get tested in a game where the ball is going to be slick, and BYU is probably going to rely on the run a little bit more. So LJ Martin. And then for Arizona's defense, I would like to see, Treydon Stukes, he continues to evolve as a player, and, after overcoming that knee injury and doing the rehab, now he's back to 100% playing like Treydon Stukes. So now that he's, a few games in, maybe he's going to hit that fifth gear. We've already seen him come up with an interception against Iowa State. Maybe we start to see him contribute more as far as tackles. And, I feel like Dalton Johnson's also due for a peanut punch and creating a turnover. That was like his specialty when he first became an Arizona defender. And I feel like we haven't seen a classic Dalton Johnson forced fumble. So keep an eye on those two guys.
Yeah, Dalton Johnson is a very good tackler, and such a good tackler that he can use that technique without, losing his grip on the ball carrier. Yeah. I was thinking about as you were talking there, like who on the Arizona offensive side would be that kind of player to watch. And of course, it's very easy to say Noah Fafita. I feel like Ismail Mahdi is a key figure in this game, but he needs help from his friends. They have got to do a better job up front of creating holes, because Ismail is really good. He's quick, he's fast, he's nifty, but he's not like going to plow through people. He's not going to be playing through contact. So they've got to open some creases for him to utilize his speed. And they just frankly did not do a good job of that against Oklahoma State. You can say whatever you want about the injuries. You can say whatever you want about how Oklahoma State was playing against them. They just need to do better up front in both the run game and the pass game. Too many sacks last week too against an Oklahoma State defense that's not very good. BYU will represent a huge step up. They will be bigger, stronger, and more physical in the trenches. So, can Arizona win that battle and enable a playmaker like Ismail Mahdi to get out in space and do his thing?
Tristan Bounds on that right side, and Alexander Deuce, who's one of their strongest offensive linemen. I expect a big game out of that right side because Tristan Bounds, solid run blocker. He's kind of turned up the physicality over the last couple.
How much better? He's sort of on that Gunnar Maldonado track, isn't he? Like, who's just starting out so poorly, and now he's become one of their most reliable linemen. Like, his grades have been really good. He's pretty much like won the right tackle job.
Yeah.
Right. He's played every snap the last 2 games at that position. He's an interesting, like, you look, he's like legit 6'8".
Yeah.
And like, I swear to you, Justin, he does not have an ounce of fat on him.
Yeah.
Like, he looks like he should be playing for Tommy Lloyd.
He looks like a basketball player.
Yeah, he looks like a basketball player. I think his sister's a volleyball player somewhere on the West Coast. So very athletic. We saw him pull on a play this last week, and you could see the athleticism on that play. And also, bring in some violence, that word that they like to talk about, which, you like to see. And it's frankly, it's going to be necessary in this game against BYU, because that's how BYU plays and has played and always plays.
All right. Now time for everyone's favorite segment, Lev. We've got the man sitting in the green room waiting for us. And that is Jordan Hamm from Sports 360 AZ, who is, by the way, 15-0 straight up over the last 2 weeks. Is that right, Lev?
That is correct. Yes. Jordan is now to be referred to as Moneyline. That's his new nickname.
Moneyline Hamm.
Those darn spreads.
Moneyline Hamm. Yes, those darn spreads. Very impressive for the rookie over here, the Bear Bachmeyer of Big 12 Bonanza. 15-0 straight up over the last 2 weeks. You can't do any better than that. Now, if I might put a little bit of perspective on Jordan's 7-0 last week, Justin also went 7-0 straight up, and I went 6-1 straight up. So it's not that impressive of an accomplishment, but to do it 2 weeks in a row, credit where it's due. Good job, Jordy.
I got you nipping on my heels, and I'm probably chasing both of you when it comes to against the spread. So it's all an even race right now, I imagine.
All right. So let's look at that. You were 4-3 against the spread last week. Justin also 4-3. I was 3-4, and the reason for that was the TCU Colorado game, which we'll discuss a little bit later when we get into this week's games. So for the season, Justin is in first place against the spread at 25-21. Jordan is 1 game behind, 24-22. I am 1 game behind him at 23-23. Justin is still leading by a game in the straight up competition at 35-11. Jordan's right there, 34-12, and I am bringing up the rear at 32-14. So, per usual, a very close, tightly contested race. Lots to be decided, just like it's a reflection of the Big 12 itself. It's wide freaking open, and that's why we like the Big 12.
You calling me the Red Raider because I'm top dog? I do.
I guess you do know it's true. Okay, Moneyline Hamm and Red Raider Spears.
I was going to call you Snappy Van Winkle based on those photos you posted this week.
Jay McSnapperson, baby, from Laces, Texas.
Oh man, that was well done. You guys should check out the socials. Justin is he's entertaining the masses here. Okay, you guys ready to get into this?
Let's do it.
Okay, we have quite the matchup here to start things off at 9 a.m. Houston Cougars visiting the Oklahoma State Cowboys. This is the TNT game this week. Houston on the road is favored by 14.5. Some big quarterback news in this game. Zane Flores got hurt last week at the end of the game against Arizona. He is apparently out for this game entirely, so it could be the Sam Jackson show for Oklahoma State. Connor Wegman, meanwhile, in the concussion protocol. They think he might be back, but you never know. We all remember the struggles that Zion Chris had at Arizona Stadium last year. Since that time, Justin, his name has become Zion Chris Grimillion. He has gone with a hyphenated, different name, but doesn't necessarily mean he is a different or better player. So that is a concern for the Cougars, to say the least. We know how bad Oklahoma State has been in all of the various categories, right? Houston, not great on offense, but pretty darn good on defense so far this season. It's really been their calling card. They are second in the league in a touchdown percentage allowed in the red zone, behind Arizona, which is number one in that category. Little dose of reality for the Cougs last week, going up against Texas Tech. I mean, they got outgained in that game 552 to 267. First downs were 27 to 12. Third downs, Tech was 9 for 18. Houston was 1 for 12. Yikes. So you're going from facing the best team in the league to the worst team in the league. That's the calculation that we all have to make here. There's really no good logical reason for me to take Oklahoma State with those 14.5 points, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm taking Houston to win, Cowboys to cover, even though it did not go well taking the Cowboys last week.
Yeah, one thing about Houston's defense, their bread and butter is really the guys in the secondary. So I'm curious, with a, altered offense, I'm sure we might see some, creative runs with Mr. Sam Jackson in the backfield. So does Oklahoma State, do they hog up the ball and try to control time of possession, and that's how they win this game? I don't know, but I feel like Zion Chris is going to have what I call the transfer portal tape game. He's only played in a couple of games this year, and he has not redshirted yet. So with, the current quarterback situation of Houston, maybe Zion Chris will go out, have an impressive game, show some good stuff on the tape for his future school. I'm going with Houston to win and cover.
I like Houston here. Just seeing Oklahoma State's offense up close, they are bad, man. And I know that it's typically easier for a team to stop a big play than create a big play. But even no matter who was back there against a very good U of A offense, it was just I don't know how you're going to score enough points to, the margins are so thin for them offensively. And Sam Jackson might even be a better option based on what we saw. I saw him when he was with Cal go up against ASU, and they were able to use him effectively. But I'm going to take Houston to cover here. I just don't think Oklahoma State can produce enough offense to keep this one within 14.5.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought when it comes to the next game, UCF at Cincinnati, also in that 9 a.m. window. This game is on FS1. Cincinnati is at home. They are favored by 11.5 points. You wonder, going into this game, whether the Bearcats are going to experience a letdown of any sort after their huge upset win over Iowa State last week. My lean is no, because they really had to struggle to hang on in that game. They were up huge early, and Iowa State came back, and it ended up being a one-score game. So I think they're going to be on full alert, and they made enough mistakes in that game where the coaches can get on their case. They had 13 penalties for 128 yards, and they are next to last in the league in penalty yards per game, as in they have the second most penalty yards per game. Of course, Cincinnati is very, very good on offense. They rushed for 260 yards in that game against Iowa State, averaging 7.6 yards per carry, which is just a wild figure to think about. UCF, again, quarterback issues here. Taven Jackson came back last week, got hurt again. He looked like he was in a ton of pain when he came off the field. Cam Fancher, transfer from Marshall/FAU, took over. And as I size up this matchup, and I know UCF is kind of a tough out, I just don't know if they have enough firepower to keep pace with the Cincinnati team. It might be a close game for a while, but I think the Bearcats eventually pull away. Just too many weapons, too much offense. I'm going to lay the 11.5 and take the Bearcats in this one.
Yeah, it's expected for Cincinnati to have the letdown game this week, but I don't know. I don't think so. I think this team, and correct me or excuse me or forgive me for sounding like a broken record if I've said this on this podcast before, but every time I watch Cincinnati play, I'm like, man, Rich Rodriguez should be coaching this team with the running backs, with the running quarterback like Brennan Sorsby. I'm like, oh my gosh, this team would just be killing it with Rich Rodriguez as their coach. I love Cincinnati right now, man. They're playing with a lot of momentum. And unfortunately for UCF, they've struggled over the last couple of weeks. I'm sure they're still dealing with the emotions of losing their offensive line coach. So UCF, I think they're going to lose this week, but fortunately for them, they get to play, I think, Oklahoma State next week. Yep. So you have
it's West Virginia
or West Virginia, excuse me. Yes,
but still, yeah, same point.
Yep. A team that's in the bottom quarter of the conference, respectfully. So I think next week will be kind of their feel-good bounce-back game against West Virginia. But this week, I got them losing to Cincinnati. But you know what? I'm going to give UCF – I think they'll have a fighter's chance. But I think Cincinnati will end up winning by 10. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati to win, but UCF to cover.
Excuse me. When you were talking Oklahoma State, I thought you were talking Cincinnati. Cincinnati's next two are UCF, Oklahoma State, and then a big game at home against Baylor. I really like this Cincinnati team, as we have spoken before. However, UCF is just that team that will just stick in it no matter how many quarterbacks deep they are. And, they gave Kansas a tough game on a Saturday night. So I'm going to take them against the spread. I think Cincinnati wins this. I see a lot of shades of ASU last year with Cincinnati, kind of under the radar team, but also a team that's just like every one of their games is just a little more chaotic than it should be. So I'll take them to win, but UCF to cover.
Cincinnati, I was going to say, they've got a really good opportunity. I know you coaches and players always think one game at a time, but leading up to that Baylor game, I mean, they win these next 2 weeks, which should be somewhat layups for Cincinnati. That's their opportunity to finally get to bowl eligibility. So big next couple weeks for Cincy.
Yeah, I think it's beyond bowl eligibility for them. I think they're thinking probably, hey, we got a shot to get to the Big 12 title game. That Baylor game's at home. They do have at Utah and at TCU later in the season, sandwiching home games against Arizona and BYU. It's funny, Jordan, you mentioned how every game with Cincinnati kind of could go either way. One of the things I wrote down for them is they are now a true Big 12 team. Mm-hmm. Because every game is like high scoring, tons of yards and points both ways. You're fun to watch. They're one of the most fun to watch teams in this league. So, all right. So we've got everyone's picking Cincinnati to win. You guys think UCF is going to hang around. We shall see. 12:30 p.m. window. TCU at Kansas State. This game is on Fox, and TCU is a slight favorite on the road against the Wildcats of Manhattan. Kansas State came so close last week to pulling off the straight up upset that I had predicted. They lost 35-34, missed a long field goal at the buzzer, which would have given them the win. Another one of these games, back and forth, tons of yards against Baylor a week ago. Avery Johnson had a really good game at 339 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jace Brown, big weapon on the outside, 4 catches for 106 yards. Dylan Edwards was not a huge factor in that game, and apparently he's still not 100%, so that's worrisome. Meanwhile, on the TCU side, they lost their starting left tackle, Ryan Hughes. They have the second worst pass blocking grade in the Big 12, according to PFF, with the only one worse is Houston. So that's a troublesome trend to me, is you're already kind of struggling up front and now you lose your left tackle. I am going to take Kansas State in this one. They almost came through for me last week. I feel like this point spread is a little bit off. I'll happily take the 1.5 points. Give me the Wildcats to win straight up.
Yeah, I'm looking at Kansas State's schedule the rest of the way because they're currently 2-4, and the remaining games are TCU at Kansas, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, at Utah, and Colorado. I think they can beat Kansas. They're certainly going to beat Oklahoma State, and they'll beat Colorado. So that's 5 games right there. They need one And I think they get it this weekend against TCU. Give me Kansas State.
Justin, I don't know if you noticed, but when you did your thumbs up, a little thumbs up graphic popped up like animation.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
So, don't mind me. I'm taking this very seriously. This spread, when I saw it, it jumped out to me. I thought TCU would have a little bit more of a wider spread there. The game is in Manhattan, so that certainly can play a factor. Despite TCU struggling with their pass game or pass blocking, last week Josh Hoover had a very efficient 5-touchdown game. And that guy's just going to deliver if you give him any sort of time. And we've talked about their two big receivers with McAllister and Dwyer. We haven't talked about Joseph Manjack IV either. He is an absolute dude. And he's one of those receivers that goes no gloves. So got to respect that. So I think TCU is going to take care of this. Kansas State, it just feels like how many times can they get kicked in the gut before it's either a turnaround or they get a little lapse in their schedule where they can take a breath. But your consolation of losing a tough game against Baylor now is to play another really good TCU team. So I just think TCU is going to take advantage of that and get the W and cover.
So I'm going to assume when you were playing, Justin, that you did not have a glove on your snapping hand. Did you have a glove in your other hand?
No, I tried it. Couldn't do it, man.
Okay. So offensive linemen typically don't wear gloves, right? More like tape.
Yeah, they wear gloves.
They do wear gloves. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes if the defending team is wearing black, they'll have black gloves so they can match the color so they don't get caught for holding.
Yeah.
So
good point. I don't think you were on, Jordy, a couple weeks ago. Justin gave me an extensive breakdown of the difference between the long snap and the short snap and why the long snap is actually easier for him because there was kind of like less pressure. Is that right, Justin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I preferred because you put more emphasis on it. You're like, just fling it back there, get it to the punter as fast as you can. With the short snap, it's a little bit more challenging. And there's also like points involved too. So there adds like that pressure where punting it, you're just like, we're giving it to the other team. So yeah, short distance was not my favorite. That's why I can feel like Avery Salerno, the long snapper for Arizona, and his issues with snapping on field goals. Because if you notice, on punt, there's no issues with his snaps. But the field goals, that hasn't been the case since I think like the Iowa State game. But yeah, short snaps, not ideal. Long snaps, yes, we like that.
I could see that too, because even like I was a high school baseball player and I would split time between second base and outfield. And outfield is just kind of like you had to be a little bit accurate, but it's just like let it rip. And like this long motion where the short throw, if you really thought about it, it was like you screwed it up a lot more because you were thinking about being so precise at such a short distance. And so I can see the difference between those two snaps.
Short snapping, it's almost like chipping or like approach shots in golf. It's like you just timing, can't really, smoke the ball. Like it's got to be you got to have some nice touch.
Whereas when you're doing the long snap, you're just on the tee with the driver in your hand, just letting it rip.
John Daly in it.
Let the big dog eat, man. Rip it and rip it.
All right, there's football 101 for the people out there. A little inside information from our former offensive lineman, our former high school baseball player here, Jordan Hamm. All right. The other game in the 12:30 p.m. window is Iowa State at Colorado. This game is on ESPN. Iowa State is favored on the road by 2.5 points. As mentioned, Iowa State upset last week at Cincinnati, sort of. I mean, Cincinnati was actually favored in that game by Vegas. It was 31-7 at one point. Iowa State outscored Cincinnati 23-7 from that point forward. So it wasn't the one-sided game that it seemed like it could be. Colorado, meanwhile, they're getting 13.5 points, according to, when we made our picks. It ended up being 14.5, which is a whole nother story, but they're down by 7. So you're like right where you want to be. And TCU, they easily could have just tried to maybe run out the clock or something like that. No, they throw a touchdown pass to McAllister with 19 seconds left for the cover. Win for Justin and Jordan, loss for me. The second straight week or the second time this season, I should say, that Colorado has absolutely broken my heart because they were in a similar situation with the ball against Wyoming, and they scored a late touchdown and a scramble by Caden Salter, where they also could have easily just run out the clock. So gotten it both ways from the Buffaloes. It's that's tough. I don't know. I got a lot of scar tissue here as it pertains to that team. But they were very competitive in that game against TCU. They were actually 9 for 14 on third down. Caden Salter's been very up and down. Like, he threw 3 picks in that game. Hasn't really given them the steady veteran leadership that I think they were hoping for. So there's been some instability there. That offense overall, I mean, they're 14th in points per game, 15th in total offense in the league. Not great. They're also last in the league in rushing defense, which is problematic going against a physical Iowa State team. Might not have Carson Hansen in this game. He's banged up, but Abu Sama did a really good job last week, rushing for 96 yards on 16 carries. I really like Iowa State in this game to bounce back. I don't think like the atmosphere in Boulder is going to affect them at all. Veteran team led by a veteran quarterback. They are not going to lose 2 games in a row. I consider Colorado to be kind of in that lower tier of the league, not near the bottom, but not even close to the top. So I really like the Cyclones in this one. I'll happily lay the 2.5 points.
My favorite storyline about Colorado going into this game has nothing to do with either of the teams. It has something to do with Colorado's mascot. So I don't know if you guys know if you heard about this, but there's a story out on ESPN.com and the Associated Press of Colorado's new Ralphie. She is named Brandy. She is 700 pounds. She's a year old, and she is named after the 1972 hit tune Brandy, You're a Fine Girl by Looking Glass. When they do her training and they run her around, apparently she is really enjoyed the song. She gets a kick out of the song more than some of the other songs. So they're like, okay, that's her name. Her name is Brandy. She made her debut a couple weeks ago at Folsom Field, and it's just good to have Ralphie back. It was a weird start to the season not having Ralphie run out on the field. So glad to see Colorado have its live mascot back. Also, really tough news with Deion Sanders continuing to deal with health problems, is dealing with some more blood clots. He has talked about, like, I'm in pain. I'm on the sidelines. I'm trying to grind and fight through this right now. So just a really unfortunate situation with one of the most interesting figures and personalities in the Big 12. And he's really good for the Big 12. I mean, he's really good for the brand. And I just hope that Deion Sanders is okay and is able to continue to coach Colorado in the future. But with that being said, Iowa State, Abu Sama, those tight ends getting out and blocking. I think this is a game where you really start to see Iowa State play bully ball, and I think they run it at Colorado, and I think they get it done and they win and cover.
Yeah, I think the Cincinnati game was a wake-up call for Iowa State. Like you said, Lev, I don't see them losing 2 in a row, at least to not elite Big 12 competition. Really, the name of the game is, can Iowa State score more than 24 points? Because Colorado scored 21 against TCU, 21 against BYU, and 20 against Houston. So if they can get in that 24-point range, they're more than likely going to cover if that math sticks. And I don't see anything about the defense. Yes, Iowa State's secondary has struggled with injuries, but I don't see that Buffalo passing game really lighting them up in the way maybe some other teams or a Cincinnati would. So I have Iowa State covering and taking this one.
Yeah, different story if this was last year, when Colorado had Shedeur Sanders at quarterback, Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn, and others at wide receiver. I think this would be a really tough matchup for Iowa State with their secondary injuries, but this is not quite the Colorado team that it has been in the first couple of years under Coach Prime. All right, moving to
Shedeur Sanders, Joe Flacco's protege.
This is true.
Now second string Shedeur Sanders.
That's right. Yeah. Quite a situation over there in Cleveland with their quarterback. Didn't they have like 5 or 6 quarterbacks at one point, like in training camp? And now I think they're down to 2, and they're both rookies. So that'll be interesting to watch. Okay. 4:30 p.m. window. We've got Kansas at Texas Tech. This game is on Fox. Texas Tech at home is favored by 14.5 points. Did you guys know that Texas Tech is number 1 in the nation in average point differential per game? 31.8 points per game. They have outscored their competition 243 to 56 through 5 games. So here is my question. Are they ever going to have that game where they're not completely on point, right? Where they are not dominating, where they're not as sharp as we have seen them so far? I say that will be this week against a Kansas team that can admit, if they can do nothing else, they can score. They can move the ball. So after a gritty win last week at UCF, I'm going to take Kansas with the points. 14.5. It's just enticing enough. Texas Tech wins the game, but it's a lot closer than their previous games have been.
Well, I think they are going to have that letdown game, like you said, Lev, but it ain't going to be this week. It'll be next week when they go on the road and play against the ASU Sun Devils in Tempe. And ASU, I mean, if they didn't pee themselves in that fourth quarter against Mississippi State, they'd still be unbeaten and one of the top teams in the Big 12. They still are one of the top teams in the Big 12. But I feel like as far as like the Big 12 championship, I feel like not many people are talking about ASU. Maybe I'm just not paying enough attention. But like we hear, Texas Tech and Iowa State and now BYU. ASU people, it seems like nobody's really talking about these guys as much as they should. And this is still a really good team. So I think that letdown game will be next week. I think Texas Tech, they'll take care of business this week against Kansas. Not the biggest fan of the rebrand for 2026. Like if we're just being honest here, kind of looks like a couple of Tucson High logos, one big one and then one small one. So not a big fan of the rebrand, but man, this Texas Tech team, you can put all your money on the table and buy a roster. We hear all the time, you can't just buy a championship. Well, Texas Tech is showing you that they are well on their way to potentially buying a championship, maybe the Big 12 or national championship, because I think that's how good this team is. So, yeah, I think Texas Tech keeps the thing rolling. They win and cover.
Do either of you know the last time Kansas went into Lubbock and got a win?
No idea.
Justin, what year were you born?
I was born in 1995.
Okay. All right. 2001.
Wow. Okay.
Was the last time.
I was in the first grade.
Yeah. So yeah, I was about.
It's been a minute. Yeah.
I was 10. Do you know the distinction that Jalen Daniels has? I believe it's the only one I know of. Bruce Feldman had this fact on a profile he did earlier in the year, but the distinct when it has to do with media.
I'm trying to remember because I remember him talking about this, but tell us.
He's been to 4 media days representing Kansas.
Wow.
So I think
this
is going to be Jalen Daniels' marquee game of his Kansas career. I think they're going to put up some points. They're going to get a massive upset over Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is looking ahead a little bit to that Arizona State game. But this is not the conference of chalk. There's a little bit of rock chalk in there, but this is the conference of chaos. And I feel weird if I don't pick a chaos game. So this is my chaos game.
Wow. Well, when Moneyline
Hamm
says that Kansas is going to win, you all should listen out there, okay? Because this man is on a hot streak right now. So, wow. Okay, I was not expecting that, but I like it. I like it a lot. So we'll see what happens down there in Lubbock, Kansas. They got, all the pressures on Texas Tech, which is a new position for them to be in. Will they be as dominant as they have been? We'll see. All right, we're going to skip the Arizona-BYU game for now. That game is slated for 5:00. We're going to skip ahead to 7:15. Arizona State at Utah. This game is on ESPN. Utah is favored by 5.5 points. Both teams coming off buys. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. I'm going to hand it over to Jordy to let us know what's going on with the Sun Devils, and then we'll loop back and give you some factoids on this one. Jordan, what you got?
As Lev mentioned, ASU coming off a bye. I think it was a great time for that bye. They have a rough stretch the next couple games. They have some big-time teams that they're going to be playing. A big focus, the weather may not be great, So they spent a lot of times dunking footballs in water, or Kenny Dillingham spraying a water bottle on the long snapper, or Sam Leavitt as he's trying to get a throw off. And, I think it's going to be really interesting to see if they can use any of their experience at Mississippi State and how tough of an environment that was to play in, if that translates to maybe some success at Rice Eccles, because that's another one that's just one of the toughest places to play. Interesting storyline here. Devin Dampier, quarterback for Utah, very talented QB, played high school football here. There are a couple Arizona guys on this Utah roster. He was coached by ASU tight ends coach Jason Mons. So it was funny whenever you would ask another coach, like, has Mons been able to give you any insight on Devin Dampier? And it's like, yeah, it's all the stuff we don't want to hear, that like he's really good in big moments and he can escape this and escape that and do everything right. He's kind of at his best when he's able to get outside the pocket and maybe escape a little bit. ASU has been very, very good at corralling mobile quarterbacks and keeping them in the pocket. And it's they've really preached, like, if one guy gets a sack, the entire D line gets a sack, because they're trying to rush as a team more than just one guy doing, his Clayton Smith on the edge doing an individual thing. It's a lot of like corralling and forcing a QB in one direction, and then one guy's able to make the sack. But again, tough environment. Utah is 28-2 at Rice Eccles from 2019 to 2023. I didn't include last year just because there were so many injuries and such a weird year for them. But very, very tough environment for them to be playing. If this was in Tempe, I would pick ASU. If this was a neutral site game, I'd pick ASU. It's in Utah. I'm going to pick Utah to win, but ASU to cover, or ASU with the points.
Yeah, man, this is a challenging game because, like you said, the weather, how is that going to look? Well, if ASU has to run the football, man, they got a badass running back by the name of Raleek Brown, who's got he's rushed for over 100 yards 3 times this season. He has been one of my favorite players to watch in the Big 12 this season. Very electric. And I thought, honestly, if you were to, give me some money, if I were to bet maybe a nickel on who's going to be ASU's top running back, I would have guessed it was going to be Kanye Udo from Army. But Raleek Brown, I thought, has been awesome this year.
And honestly, Jay, I would have, at the beginning of the year, I would have picked Kyson Brown. So Raleek Brown would have been like probably the third guy on that list too.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Raleek Brown. And some people can sit there and say, well, ASU, they've gotten lucky over the last couple of games. They've squeaked out some wins. I mean, you could call it luck, or you could call it ASU just knows how to win in crunch time. And, they did it against a really good TCU team recently. And so, yeah, I feel really good about this ASU team. I think they're going to win on the road and get their first win at Rice Eccles Stadium since 2017.
Well, we got another upset here. I like it. A couple of things to note, to your point earlier, Jordy, about ASU's pass rush. They've got 4 players in the top 12 of the Big 12 in tackles for loss. Clayton Smith and Keyshawn Elliott are tied for 3rd in the league with 4 sacks apiece. So it's not just one guy. Like it's a group effort. I think 3rd down is going to be really big in this game. Utah is number 1 in the league in 3rd down efficiency at 61.1%, and Arizona State is last, down around 30%. So that's a big factor. And then, of course, Devin Dampier is just the wild card. ASU has 19 sacks, which is the most in the league. Utah's quarterbacks have been sacked only 3 times in 5 games. So he is difficult to corral. But if you can keep him in the pocket, I think he's a less effective player, point blank. So all that being said, I'm with you guys. I think this is going to be a really close game. I would be surprised if it's not a field goal game. I'm going to go with Jordy on this one. Take Utah to win, but ASU to cover. And it would not surprise me in the least if ASU did end up pulling the upset in this one. I was very close to going in that direction. All right, one more game to go. That is BYU at Arizona. This game's at 5 o'clock, and it is on ESPN2. And BYU is a slight favorite in this game, 1.5 points. You were talking earlier, Jordy, about the wet ball drills and all of that stuff. Definite possibility of rain here in Tucson, which I think might slightly favor the Cougars in this one. They have some injury concerns at linebacker, two of their best, maybe their most important players, Isaiah Glasgow and Jack Kelly. We'll see what the availability report looks like, but both of those guys got banged up last week. I have gone back and forth on this one all week long, and I was tempted to go with Arizona, but I still think that BYU can control this game in the trenches. I just think they're still the bully on the block here, the bigger, more physical team. So I am reluctantly going to take the Cougars to win and cover here. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Arizona's going to put up a good fight, good accounting for itself. But I just think BYU's in a little better place as a program right now. So I'm a slight edge to the Cougars. And I think, honestly, they could have been favored by more. I feel like you're getting a pretty good value here if you're only giving 1.5 points. So I'm going to take BYU.
I'm going to go with the Wildcats to win this game. It's the biggest game or biggest home game of the Brent Brennan era. And, they just played the biggest game of the season a couple weeks ago against Iowa State. And, you could sit there and say, well, they lost by 25 points. But, if you were to tell me that going into that game that Arizona would hold to Iowa State to 2.4 rushing yards, and you told me that score, I would have assumed that Arizona had won 39-14. And then a lot of those plays that Arizona was in position to make against Iowa State, it went in favor of the Cyclones. A lot of 50-50 balls that led to some big plays for Iowa State. I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like the ball is going to bounce Arizona's way in this game at home. It's going to be a gritty win. It's going to be a hard-fought win, and Michael Salgado-Medina is going to play a huge part because, BYU's defense, there are going to be moments where they stop Arizona from scoring, and they're going to have to use his leg to get as many points as they can. So, I don't know. It's a tough call. Like you said, Lev, I've been going back and forth on this. If it becomes, a wet ball game, both defenses are top 5 in rushing defense, and they do a nice job of stopping the run. So, which one is going to give up? I don't know, but we'll find out. But for now, I don't feel confident about this, but I'm going to go with Arizona to win this game and pull off the upset.
I'm curious to know, and you guys let me know if there has been an update, the health of the offensive line, because I know some guys left during the Oklahoma State game. Have we heard any updates, or do we need to wait for the Wednesday night report?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, we are. Yes. If we were recording this on Thursday instead of Wednesday, we would have a little bit more information in that regard, but nothing as of now.
Got it. I think the real key is going to be, can this defense make Bear Bachmeier look like a freshman and maybe have a couple freshman lapses and maybe throw a pick or, some poorly timed throws or anything like that. I'm just concerned about with Arizona. I mean, we even saw it against Oklahoma State where they come out at halftime and it's just, there's this lull where they are not effective. And if you do that against BYU, like, you're going to be in trouble. Like, Oklahoma State, you can weather that storm, but BYU is going to look at that and start salivating and probably flip 14 points on you. So again, I said this, I think, before with them, a run game, a defense travels. I'm going to take BYU to win this and win it by more than 1.5 points. I think it will probably be within a touchdown. But I feel like BYU, like that identity and the overall, I think, kind of health of and depth of this program is just I feel a little bit better about it than where Arizona is currently.
I was struggling to find a great pun to play off of the red line idea when I was writing about the third quarter struggles last week. And it was actually Ricky Hunley, who was sitting in the press room with us this week, who suggested flat line instead of red line to describe those third quarter lulls, which I thought was really good. And I wish I had thought of it at the time, but you're absolutely right. Like, they cannot afford to have that bad quarter or even that bad 5-minute stretch against this team. Right. And to your point, Justin, about Michael Salgado-Medina, like, man, I don't know how you could feel confident knowing how he's had issues inside 50 yards. And you add on top of it the possibility of bad weather, right? Yeah. Like, the field could be slick. The ball could be slick. That could affect the snap. It could affect the hold. And if it comes down to that, I feel like, again, the advantage probably swings in BYU's favor.
So, scenario here. This is my bold prediction, guys.
Okay.
So the last time Arizona beat BYU was in 2008 for the Las Vegas Bowl. The time before then, they beat them in 2006. Michael Salgado-Medina wears number 19, right? Well, 19 years later, he replicates Nick Folk's game-winning field goal against the Cougars. So that's my bold prediction. Michael Salgado-Medina, game-winning field goal right there at the end.
I wasn't sure where you were going with that. And frankly, my head was kind of spinning with all the math that I had to do in that situation. But all right.
Yeah.
You have planted your flag.
It's that Charlie Kelly meme from It's Always Sunny where he's got the red string and Pepe Sylvia and all that.
Should be a fun one. Saturday at 5 p.m. Hopefully 5 p.m. Hopefully the monsoon gods don't delay the start.
Jordy, where are you going to be Saturday?
I will be in Salt Lake. I believe Jordan Spurgeon will be in Tucson covering the Cats, but I am making the trip with the Sun Devils. And it feels like, Justin, you and I think we're the only media up there last year when Arizona went up there. This is like my 5th time going to Rice Eccles, and I think that was the only time I was dry. And it's fully anticipated, like the skies are going to open up. So should be a fun atmosphere, and then a not very fun post game to deal with. So.
Make sure you get a dirty soda up there in Utah, man. I don't know if you've ever had those before.
I have not had the pleasure.
Oh man, you think like Dr. Pepper and creamer won't go together, but surprisingly it does.
Okay, there we go.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of the Wildcast podcast. That's Jordan Hamm from Sports 360 AZ joining us. Check out all of his coverage at sports360az.com and follow him on all the socials, including X at Jordy Hamm. And if you want to follow his coverage at Rice Eccles Stadium, he's going to be out there for ASU Utah. Jordan, we appreciate you, man, as always, for stopping by every single week.
Absolutely. Always have fun with you guys.
All right, we're going to have all of our Arizona-BYU coverage on Tucson.com and the Wildcaster mobile app. And, we'll see you guys next week. Appreciate you for listening.